Est-ce qu'il y a beaucoup de monde ici qui aura des problèmes si on parle en anglais? Parce qu'un de nos intervenants, le français est inexistant. Non, peut-être pas. OK, donc we will do this in slow, easily understood English. So we have here today two big suppliers of in-flight entertainment and in-flight connectivity. In-flight connectivity is what interests us most today because that's where you get the Wi-Fi. And that's where you need the satellites. And that's why you call people like Rodolphe Belmer of Eutelsat, because he's an infrastructure provider, a wholesaler, who has a fleet of satellites. Eutelsat just launched 2 weeks ago a satellite that's going over Asia, and the biggest customer on that satellite, I think, is Panasonic, yes, right here, to provide Wi-Fi over Asia. Eutelsat also has an agreement with a company in California called Vice-président to provide Wi-Fi services in a big region between North America and Europe and the Caribbean and the Atlantic corridor, also for commercial aviation. Thales recently, 6 months or so ago, 9 months ago, bought a large satellite from with another operator, SES, and Thales is going to be using that to provide Wi-Fi over North America, which already has a lot of Wi-Fi, both ground-to-air Wi-Fi and satellite Wi-Fi, but Thales thinks there's not enough, and there's going to need to be more, because Thales, a big IFC provider, thinks that sooner or later you can marry what they've got now with their seatback screens and what I know my kids want every time they go anywhere, which is their own personal devices attached to the internet. So Thales will explain to us, as will Panasonic, how they want to marry these two things, because Thales doesn't like it and Panasonic doesn't like it if your 18-year-old gets on the flight and has his own iPad or iPhone and looks at that only. So the magic that Thales and Panasonic will have to perform is to make sure that they route it somehow to use their existing IFE. Dave Bruner of Panasonic will not say he applauded it, neither will Thales, but we have a big cloud on the horizon here coming from the United States, where the government may decide to extend the current ban on iPads and laptops now from 8 countries, I think. David, is that right? And David has been at several airports where you have to check your iPad and your laptop. It's not good news. So the question is, if that becomes generalized, where any flight going to the United States has to check the laptop and the iPad, is that really bad news for in-flight Wi-Fi? Maybe not, because the phones so far aren't affected. But let me start with the infrastructure provider. Rodolphe, if you could give us an idea of basically how big a deal in-flight connectivity now is at Eutelsat, and how big a deal you think it's going to be in 5 years. I believe I know that it's growing fairly rapidly.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to grow extremely rapidly. That's what we see at the moment. This market actually is a nascent market, even though in-flight connectivity is already well developed in the US, where, well, David will tell that better than I do, but 90% of planes, they are equipped with Wi-Fi on board. It's coming to Europe now, and it's also coming to Asia. At the moment, for us, it represents only 5% of our revenues, but we think it will more than double in the next 5 years. And after that, we think that the growth will be even more important, even more accelerated. Why? Because what we think is that with today's satellites, with today's infrastructure, we can deliver good service to the passengers. With tomorrow's infrastructures, which will be much more productive, much bigger satellites, will be able to produce an even better service for the passengers. Our objective is to bring Wi-Fi in quantity enough so that people on board the planes, they can stream Netflix on their iPad in an HD quality. That's the objective, and that's the kind of infrastructure we want to build to deliver on that service.
Okay. So the question I have for you two gentlemen is this. If you're over the Pacific and there's no planes around you, you don't need a lot of satellite capacity to provide one plane. If you're over an airport, over Roissy or over New York, and there are lots of planes at 1,700, you're going to need an awful lot of satellite capacity to provide each customer on all those planes with what that customer wants. How much? I don't know. Maybe I'll start with you, Richard, of Thales. How much capacity? You're ordering a big satellite over North America. Is that enough? So
the idea is to serve exactly the need you were describing. One of the hurdles into this connectivity market is so far the experience on board was quite limited for passenger. And if we want to go to a live streaming, we need high throughput. So that's what we developed with SES-17, the satellite which is going to be launched by Thales Alenia Space for SES operator. First of all, this satellite will be fully dedicated to the aerospace market. This is a big difference compared to the other satellites which are serving different market verticals. Second thing is that this new generation satellite will be a very high throughput satellite and with the ability to provide 200 narrow beams of connectivity and thanks to a processor embedded on the satellite itself to refocus in real time this bandwidth and this throughput on the regions which has the highest need. So depending if it is day, night, you can even follow a flight from a certain company. So you can tag one aircraft and make sure that you will provide all along the flight the right level of service agreement for this airplane. So this capacity to reassess in real time where all the needs of bandwidth will be a key figure to trigger the service to the passenger.
So your answer is yes. That's enough to handle over New York or Dallas or Houston?
In a nutshell, it's yes.
Okay.
So that's exactly what we're seeking for with SES-17.
Okay, just one last one for you for now. So when you say enough, right now there are only 6 or 7% of passengers on flights with Wi-Fi that use it, mainly business passengers. The Eldorado of tomorrow is when you extend all that to the back of the plane and all the kids are using their stuff, right? All the families are using their stuff in economy class. That changes the demand curve, doesn't it? And you're saying in that environment, in 5 years, when you've got Wi-Fi extended throughout the entire plane, maybe it's free or it's almost free, even in that demand environment, your one satellite's going to be enough?
For serving the US, South America, and the northern region, on the top of that, on this satellite, we added 4 satellites thanks to an agreement we have with Hughes as well that we signed up this year. But yes, the objective is really to deliver to our passenger an experience which will be comparable to the one they have on the ground. That's the only reason why the take-up rate as of today are so low, is because people are experiencing difficulties in getting connected. So you were referring to the millenniums. I know it pretty well. I have a 12-year son. Of course, he's looking for Wi-Fi, he's looking for connectivity, but he doesn't want to be interrupted. He wants to be able to stream over YouTube the video. So that's the standard we must reach. And this is exactly why we designed a specific satellite for this purpose.
All right. I don't mean to pick on you on this, but how do you explain the fact that Air France is so far behind on this? It's strange. I'm not talking about the high-end airlines like the Asians and the elite airlines, but Delta Airlines, Air France's code share partner. There is no transatlantic flight on Delta now without Wi-Fi.
So first of all, I will not focus especially on Air France. Since
why are some airlines lagging behind?
I think the first answer is that there is specifically in the US a different culture regarding connectivity, and they've been the first one to introduce live TV on board the aircraft. Today, Thales, we are flying 600 aircraft with the live TV on board. So they've been the first to trigger this demand in terms of connectivity. So the rest of the region were not on the same path. And on the top of that, I think the European region has some specificities, and the first one being that even if the territory is comparable to the US, it's still several countries, and then several borders, several regulations, and so forth. So there's not the same unification as the one we have in the US.
Fair enough.
And then I will invite you to address this question directly to Air France.
I have, because I'm a regular, I live here, so I have to fly Air France. And 9 hours to Cayenne without Wi-Fi is remarkable. Anyway, in 2017. It is peaceful, yes. All right, Dave Bruner of Panasonic. Dave, let me start with the same question for you. You've been known as a guy who goes all around the world, everywhere he can find more satellite capacity, and just buys it. In fact, I'm sure one of your bosses wanted to say, stop Dave from traveling because he'll buy more satellite capacity. But you keep on buying it.
Have you been talking to them?
I have not been talking to them. But you have bought a lot of satellite capacity. So the question for you is the same. Over a big metropolitan airport at the congested times of the day, do you have enough capacity now, or will you, given what you're ordering now in the next 3 or 4 years, to handle that many aircraft when you've got Wi-Fi distributed right to the back of the cabin?
Yes and no. So I'll explain. It's a very difficult question, and we run models. They're very sophisticated. We know with all of the aircraft and their historical usage, exactly what their peak is going to be at a certain time. But there's a strange phenomenon in this business. The data consumption per user doubles every 2 years. Right? So you have to expect this, and you have to plan that in. There's also a function of cost. How are you going to, the passenger expectation is for terrestrial kind of pricing. And it is much more expensive to deliver this to an airplane than it is to a user on the ground at their home, at a hotel. This is not a, you're not going down to the electronics store and buying a wireless access point and slapping it in an airplane. So when you say why have airlines held back, it is capital cost. And it is labor, because someone has to modify the aircraft. It's quite an endeavor to do this. And then there's ongoing operating costs. It is right now, though, a brand differentiator. And so there's a race on for every airline in the world to add in-flight Wi-Fi. It's not Eldorado, because every airline will have Wi-Fi. They can choose how much bandwidth they want per passenger. We can all meet their demands. That's not an issue. Today, we have a certain demand, and we plan for our satellite assets to basically run out in 3 years and to have new capacity coming online, and we layer that capacity with multiple satellites. We're not dependent on one, even in a piece of geography. Over the United States today, we have 8 different satellites serving the same geography. 2 of those are high throughput. So we have tremendous amount of capacity. By January of next year, we'll have 2 more high throughput satellites. So you have tremendous amount of capacity. You have to be able to do this worldwide. We are offerable and operate service in every country of the world. So it is very difficult. It's very fragmented in many parts of the world. You've got to overcome those difficulties so you have a seamless experience for the customer on board. But you do have a problem meeting their expectations for bandwidth. And their taste for what they want to do with that bandwidth. I mean, we service streamers today. We just lose money on them. And so you have to rationalize the experience, you try to traffic shape, you try to do things with pricing such that the person who just wants to send a few texts isn't burdened with the expense of somebody else who wants to stream. So there's a lot going on in this market. 5 years ago, people were very happy to do their email at 35,000 feet over Greenland. No more. Now they want it on every flight, they want it from gate to gate, they want as much bandwidth as they want, and they want the prices to be the same as they are on the ground. So this is a tremendous challenge to us as an industry. I turn to my suppliers, I squeeze them, I say, you've got to help me out here. cut your current prices. I want you to launch a new satellite. I want it to be, at pricing that's a tenth of what it was the last time we bought from you. So there's tremendous industry pressure going on to meet this need for mobility. But we are making tremendous progress. But just to the theme of the session, if Eldorado, if it's just Wi-Fi for passengers, this is not going to be a very successful business. We'll have some happy customers, but they'll be satisfied. The airlines will be satisfied for a short period of time. What really transforms this business, and it will happen, and it is the gold mine, is when the airlines take advantage of this connected aircraft to improve the productivity and improve the customer service delivered to the passenger. And all of us have been around this, and you've probably experienced this when you fly, but you give the crew more tools to serve you as a passenger. They know exactly who you are. They know what you like, what you want. They know your connections. They know that we're going to be late and you're going to miss your connection, and they could already reaccommodate you in the air. They can personalize that experience. They can help you with your tracking your baggage. If something happens, you become ill on board, you can be face-to-face in video conferencing with a doctor that's somewhere on the ground and be able to determine, do they need to divert this flight or do they not? All these things affect the service, they affect the cost, the productivity. One of the things that Thales does very well, and this could even create situations in which we work with our competitor, which is kind of crazy, but essentially they build cockpit systems. We have a pipe for the data to go off the aircraft. Many times we coexist on the same aircraft. And the key is, how do we service our airline customers to get more productivity? A big part of that will come out of maintenance and flight operations. And a lot of that is the flight deck and their need for information. Today, that's completely infeasible with the narrowband systems that are available. They're very good, they're very reliable, they're very expensive, and some applications are just not possible because of the bandwidth. So all of us are racing to develop and cooperate with others who are developing those applications. That is Eldorado. Right. That will make this a profitable business.
Fair enough. All right. Let me get back to just the cabin, though, because the connected aircraft for finding out how your motor is, maintenance stuff, the electronic flight bag, all that stuff, cockpit, yes, a big deal, but we can't cover everything in an hour. Let me ask both of you here, Thales and Panasonic, your competitors say, all you guys want to do is figure out a way to keep your in-flight screen backs and in-flight entertainment systems viable. They don't have that problem. They're in on a pure Wi-Fi. They want to provide bandwidth and internet to the passengers. You guys want to do that only as an excuse to try to maintain the service lives of a big investment you've made in in-flight entertainment. So tell us why that isn't necessarily true, and why it is that IF in-flight connectivity, like Wi-Fi, can work well with in-flight entertainment, which is the movies and the rest of it. So, Richard, let's start with you.
So the first thing, what we're looking for is to serve our customer. So if the demand is moving completely to the wireless IFE, we will do wireless LFE. We have this in our product range. I think with the most important thing is to measure the experience the passenger has on board today. This IFE business has been built upon the early window content concept. So the majority of people in the aircraft are watching the latest movie. But now I think it's also a stake for the whole industry to adapt the in-seat IFE to the world of today, to be able to propose new content, much more in line with what the millennials, for example, are looking for. I don't know if you had an experience or trying to make shopping on board on past generation IFE. It's not something very engaging. So what we must do today is how to engage the passenger within our system and taking the benefit of the connectivity in terms of services. This is very true, and I'm fully in line of the services we can bring to the airlines from the maintenance perspective, but this is also the service we must bring to the passenger, how to better entertain them, how to engage them. At the moment, the interaction with the IFE system is just one way. You're watching a movie, you're listening to music. But it's not enough. What people look or have on their tablet today is much more interactive. In that way, for example, Netflix has completely disrupted the content market. They started with a low-quality catalog, but they were able to propose you an experience, personalized, and so forth. So that's the direction where we shall go, to make people much more engaged with our system, to find more services, and then I think the IFE will remain on board with an in-seat, because at the same time there are some big advantages to have an in-seat IFE. You can use it really as a marketing tool for the airline. It's the engine of the marketing strategy of the airline. It's something which has been designed to be well suited within your seat and so forth. I can draw a parallel with the car industry. The screens in the car remain over the time. You always have a screen in a car. However, the car dealer is not trying to sell you anymore his GPS option. What he's doing is using it as a platform, and then you plug your cell phone application. You have Waze inside this environment using Apple CarPlay, for example. So we must use it also as a platform in order to enhance much more applications, to give an environment much more close to the one the passenger has on his cell phone. For example, today we are able to do PD pairing, so personal devices pairing with the IFE system. So this can be somehow, you raised the question about the ban. Today we are able to pair a smartphone with the environment. Then we can propose an environment for the businessman to keep still working, doing his email, having Excel, whatever he wants to do on board the aircraft. So we need to see the screen as being a platform and part of an environment, being able to offer other services. I mean, Skydeal's presentation was really a good topic. We need to enlarge also to other players. That's what we did, for example, in our environments. We are proposing a platform for any developer which can provide us their application. We're an Android-based system, very open. So we are opening it to the community. So that's what will really make the IFE of the future, is to better engage the passenger and to provide much more service than the one they have today.
And Dave, before you answer the same question, wouldn't it be better in the next 15 years, as the new generation of aircraft come online, to dispense with the seat back screen and just give everybody an iPad as they load the plane? Wouldn't that be cheaper and easier for everyone, or no?
No, actually it's not. Have you held an iPad for 15 hours?
They're getting lighter. They're getting lighter.
It's not very comfortable.
You have a Velcro thing on your seat.
So typically people don't do it for more than 30 minutes at a time. And you notice when you live here, but most people when they check into the hotel, you still have a TV in your room. Why? It's got a big screen, it gives a great picture, it's high resolution. You're still using your iPad or your iPhone when you're in the room, you use them for different purposes. And so everything, you're going to use all these things and you use them simultaneously. Our job's to enable those. And you know, one thing that's kind of funny about this, by the way, I agreed with everything my colleague said.
Sort of thought you would, yeah.
Because we really see this, I think, from very similar perspective. Are we in connectivity? Absolutely. We're spending huge amounts of money, both of us, to enable the future for airlines. Hasn't diminished the demand for our core IFE products at all. In fact, they're at an all-time high. In fact, our installations on narrow-body airplanes are at an all-time high. It's actually stimulated demand for our core product. We're also the world's largest wireless IFE supplier. So all of this stuff just actually unlocked new markets, new aircraft that before did not have entertainment. And so we now have a bigger market than we had before. We're also more efficient, more effective, lower cost systems to meet more airlines' price points, but giving them functionality that matches what they want for their brand. And for some, they want a high-end experience, they want to offer more services. We help them to pay with those things with ancillary revenue. Advertising is a big way we do that today. We operate a global live television service. We put ads into that live television service. We're essentially a very large broadcaster. that has our own network and we control our own advertising. So it's ways in which we're helping the airlines pay for these systems, which do cost money, but you want high quality, you want things that last, you want things that are supported and maintained. One thing on an airplane is you don't run on board and swap out something every other week. And when you put portables on board and you hand them out, most of them disappear or get broken. And so it usually becomes a thing that an airline does for a short period of time for some type of service they want to deliver. It's very hard to do logistically over a long period of time. So we embrace that. We support it for airlines that want to operate that way. Usually they want you to bring your own device because you're more gentle with your own device. And we support that. But it's really growing the entire business, providing applications and services, working with third parties, so that this entire industry or ecosystem grows. We help the airlines, we help ourselves, absolutely. Bandwidth, we just need cheaper bandwidth.
All right. How long does it take to install the hardware necessary to equip a long-haul aircraft for Wi-Fi? Just how long do you have to take it out of service just to do that?
Wide body, narrow body, it's the same for us, it's 4 days.
4 days out of service. So you do that in the dead of winter, I guess, or?
Airlines try to do it when they have excess capacity. That's when they do heavy maintenance. They'll put it into heavy maintenance checks, especially on wide bodies. Narrow bodies, right now you've got a push for this to happen, so a lot of carriers are actually just doing an assembly line and do an airplane a night or even 2 or 3 airplanes a night. So it really depends on size of their fleet and how fast do they want to get this done.
4 days sound right to you? That seems a little long. GoGo says they can do it in 2 days. GoGo is a competitor of these gentlemen here.
Yeah, but they're also losing money on that, so I don't know if it is
that
the right
may be air to
balance.
ground, not satellite.
I mean, this is a standard from the industry and also driven by the aircraft manufacturer when we're talking about line fit, and with also all the regulations when we're talking about retrofit. So this is quite common.
Okay, let me get another one for you guys, and I'll go back to Rodolphe for a minute on the infrastructure business model. Who pays for all this? You've got to install stuff on the skin of the aircraft. You got to outside fit some stuff on the interior. I know Panasonic is paying for the satellite capacity, but who pays for the rest of it?
We have a number of different types of business models, and almost all of them end up with co-investment by ourselves and by the airline. Whenever you subsidize the price of the hardware, essentially we're assisting in that process. And
assisting, you mean you're helping pay for it?
We're helping them pay for it.
Right. Okay.
There are several models in the industry. This will depend on the type of business of the airline, in which segment they are. You have some airlines which might consider that connectivity must have itself return on investment. Okay. Then you have other companies, for example, on the premium segment, that they do consider that this is a must-have in their service. So they will embed this into the price of the ticket. So in order to foster the adoption of connectivity on board the aircraft, we need first to lower the cost globally of the hardware on one side, the bandwidth, the data on the other side, but also to propose to our customers innovative business model, associated services to make them able, for example, to generate ancillary revenue, to have also the ability to work around the data analytics. This has a value as well. And today we are completely missing this part of the business. So that's the reason why we have invested within Thales into the data analytics business. Of course, all this has to be framed by a good cyber security level. This will come along with connectivity. As many aircraft will be connected, you'll need to protect the aircraft on board. You'll need to protect the data, which will be transferred on the ground. So this will be a heavy stake for the industry in order to keep this momentum around connectivity.
Do you see Wi-Fi on planes, like Wi-Fi in hotels, where 10 years ago they tried to charge you X per day for Wi-Fi, and now most hotels give it to you free? Is that the way we're moving here in aircraft too? Sooner or later it's going to be free or not?
I mean, the tendency, at least from a passenger perspective, the wish is to have the internet for free. So at the end of the story, first of all, they want to have it for free, but they want first a good level of availability. So this is the first point. And this might be also the fact that they will be willing to pay a bit more, I don't know. But the first thing, they want a quality of service. Even in the hotel, when you have the Wi-Fi for free, if you're just able to send an email and each time you want to see an application, you don't have the right level of bandwidth, you'll be pissed off. So the first thing is to have the high quality in terms of services. And then to work with our customer, with the airline, to find the right balance and the right business model, which is not easy. As of today, there are some economics which are difficult to manage. However, we all have the objective to improve it with also providing more value-added services, which will, in my opinion, be a real trigger for this industry and to reach a better economic efficiency.
Okay. Rodolphe, you are an infrastructure provider, a wholesaler. You don't go to the end customer for these types of things. But as it becomes a bigger portion of your revenue, might you go further down toward the customer? Or do you want to stay where you are in terms of, we just provide the wholesale infrastructure in orbit, you guys handle the rest of it?
Well, this is a good question, and actually different from some of our competitors. We have made clear that we don't want to go downwards the value chain. I'm hearing on my left lots of sort of latent criticism on the price of the capacity. The price of the capacity is a derivative of the cost of the satellites, which is a very, very heavy capex-intensive infrastructure, very high technology, lots of R&D involved in those new generations of satellites that are dedicated to deliver broadband. And the fact is that today we find that only with one customer we cannot really make sure that we can generate revenue enough to finance for one satellite. And we have to make sure that the satellite can be used to serve different applications, not only airlines, but also broadband, for instance, on the ground for the residential market, and also different customers. Otherwise, well, the price we would have to charge to our clients would be not affordable to them, would be completely out of reach. The cost of one satellite of this new generation is around 500 million euro per piece.
Oh, hang on. You mean a really big one?
Oh, a really big one, yeah.
Okay. But the one, for example, the one you just launched for Panasonic over Asia, that was a smaller satellite, and Panasonic is not taking the entire satellite, are they? No, only a piece of the payload.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Even Panasonic, which is our biggest customer, they take 60% of a fraction of the satellite, which is called the HTS payload, meaning that they probably represent 10% of the total capacity of the satellite, or the total expected revenue of the satellite.
Okay, all right. I want to open a small parenthesis here on something that's a little complicated for the audience, and I apologize, but because it's a wave that's coming in the next couple of weeks, I have to mention it. A company that's not here called Inmarsat out of London. Anybody from Inmarsat here? Would you admit it if you were? Because you know what I'm going to say. Anyway, Inmarsat has spent a couple of €100 million to launch a satellite that's going up on the 28th of June by Ariane. And Inmarsat is sharing that satellite with another operator called Arabsat. But Inmarsat is using it to provide Wi-Fi in Europe. Wi-Fi by the satellite and Wi-Fi by several hundred air-to-ground towers that they're building with Deutsche Telekom. So it's a model that's already been used in the United States. Inmarsat starts with the satellite. In the United States, we started with air-to-ground and then added satellite because air-to-ground wasn't enough, as Dave said. So in 2 weeks, this satellite's going up. And the satellite is being launched under a license from the European Commission. And there are two of the three people at this table don't like that at all. And they think that Inmarsat is violating the license that they got many years ago from the Commission. And they are now mounting a legal offensive to try to stop or dilute or modify, or I don't know what word you want to use, the application of this license by Inmarsat. It's true that Inmarsat will be a competitor to Panasonic in Europe and everybody else who's doing, and also to Eutelsat and your partner Viasat. Inmarsat will be a competitor there. So there's a competitive thing here. Let me ask Rodolphe and Dave, I don't believe Thales has skin in this game for the moment. All right. What exactly, without going into too many details, because you just lose most of the audience here, what is the basic nature of your protest, and what do you hope to achieve now when we're only really minutes away from the satellites being launched? I mean, this thing's been going on for 5 years. Where were you 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? So that's the question. So if you, I know it's a tough assignment, Rodolphe, but if you could start, what is the nature of your protest, and what do you hope to achieve?
You're right, it's a tough challenge that you are setting up for me. Actually, we are not contesting the right for Inmarsat to send a satellite and to produce Wi-Fi from this satellite, not at all. I'm sorry because it's a sort of complex situation, and I'm sorry for the audience, but I will try to explain. Actually, Inmarsat is using a frequency which is called, well, the name is the 2 gigahertz frequency, or S-band. It has been given a license by the European Commission a few years ago, 7 years ago, to use this frequency in Europe from space to reduce the digital divide in Europe. And to serve at minimum, there were very precise constraints which were associated to this license, which was reducing the digital divide in Europe, which is a very sound and noble ambition, and to deliver a service to at minimum 50% of the European population, and it should have been a space-based system. That's the definition of the frequency they got. We know it because we got the same. And what they're doing today, they are diverting this license to do in majority what is called an air-to-ground system, meaning that they use that same frequency from the ground, meaning as a terrestrial frequency, to produce Wi-Fi from the ground and to broadcast it towards the sky, to the plane, and to produce Wi-Fi. It's a distortion of a rule. It's a misusage, and also it's a detriment to the European population.
Wait, the European population will get better service with all these ground things.
But well, this is not true. Well, I was on the sort of factual analysis. Now I'm more on a subjective analysis. But the fact is that, from Inmarsat words and their own words, the total system called ATG or EAN, according to their terminology, will be producing 50 gigabits of capacity for Europe. 95% coming from the ground and less than 5% coming from space. We are going to bring a satellite to cover Europe in 3 years from now, which will produce 1 terabyte. What do I mean? With 50 gigabytes of capacity, you will produce only a very limited number of capacity, and you are not able to deliver what people want, which is streaming video content of good quality when they are flying. And this is true today, and it will be even more true tomorrow, because today the provisioning, meaning the capacity consumed by individual, is relatively low. But as Dave said, it is multiplied by a factor of 2 every 3 to 4 years. And what we estimate, and there is a consensus on that figure, the provisioning will be of 500 kilos by 2023, 2024. And obviously, this system, which is this air-to-ground system, which is not scalable will not be good enough to deliver the service for the European passengers. And we think that it's a sort of distortion of a regulation. It creates a monopoly. The terrestrial frequency should have been used for something else. It should have been sold, because terrestrial frequencies, they come with standards. In the US, GoGo, they are using this kind of system, but they have paid for the frequency.
Yeah. Okay, so there's an injustice that was committed, but there's injustice committed every day. It's too late. The satellite's about to be launched. The ground hardware is already being built by Deutsche Telekom. What do you hope to have happen? You really think European regulators are going to put a stop to the whole thing now?
But it's not too late, because, well, you cannot hide yourself. Because, well, when you've done something which is not lawful, you cannot hide yourself. Say, well, you have not caught me. You have not seen me. It's not serious. The fact is that we have realized quite lately, and I think it's the same for most of our partners, that the system was so unbalanced, that the space payload was so anecdotal. It's only a fraction, maybe less than 1%. You know the figure better than I do. Maybe less than 1%. And then we said it's too much, because the fact is that, and everybody knows that in that room, the terminals using satellite capacity are more expensive. And it creates the fact of not using space frequency allows the ATG system to result mostly on low-cost terminals, which creates an undue competitive advantage, and which is perceived, in the short run at least, as interesting or exciting or appealing to airlines.
All right. So, just very briefly, what do you want the European regulator to do now?
No, we are not going to the regulator. We're going to the judge. Because
what do you want the European court to do now?
The court will say that the usage of this frequency is unlawful, and that it cannot be used unless it respects the law and the rights. And the law says, and the regulation says, that it should be used to bridge the digital divide in Europe.
Okay.
Full stop.
Have you filed suit in a court?
Yeah.
Which court?
The General Court of Justice of the Commission, of the European Community.
Eutelsat did?
Viasat did, and we joined.
Okay, and when was that filed, you know?
Well, Viasat, I don't know. We learned that Viasat did that months ago, and we joined last week.
Okay, last week. Just a little late in the day here. I mean, considering when all this is happening. But anyway, you've made your case. David, could you say something about this from, I mean, Panasonic also looks at this as a threat to your business in Europe, I guess. Have you joined the lawsuit? I mean, what are you just on the sidelines here applauding Eutelsat and Viasat, or what?
Yes, in this particular case, we did join with Viasat and even with GoGo in filing a complaint in the UK, where the first test of this system was to take place, with all of the same arguments for why this is improper and it's unfair to other operators. If they wanted this to be done for in-flight service, they should have held an auction or had a filing system by which you could seek out this frequency. The second part of it, which you mentioned in your original question, is, and Rodolphe kind of talked to the technical aspects of this, it's infeasible. It does not provide enough bandwidth. It's not going to be useful. It is a way of capturing an airline and getting your equipment on board, and then they're stuck with you for many, many years, and then they'll be forced to say, okay, I'll augment that equipment with some other equipment that'll provide some service, but you're locked into a deal, that airline, for many, many years. And it's not a clear and honest way to provide the economic offer to the airline. And what they're doing by launching a satellite is saying, okay, they're very unlikely to take away or not allow us to operate once we get the satellite. So they're trying to pressure everyone into this, that once the satellite's up, then nobody will go backwards. But Inmarsat took that risk. So if this does not work and they lose this judgment by the judge, then we think that's fair. They did this with full knowledge that they were using frequency for not its intended purpose. Right. And so we oppose it.
Okay. Richard, let me start with you and then to Dave. If the laptop ban now for only 8 nations to the United States goes worldwide, so you cannot travel to the United States by air with an iPod or a laptop in cabin. You can check it. How much does that change in what we've been talking about here? Anything?
For me, it's just an opportunity to accelerate. I would say accelerate the adoption of connectivity it's another incentive for the airline to better serve the passenger and to adopt connectivity. From an industry point of view, we have solutions already in place to make, as I told you, PED, a PET pairing with the system. So you can have a mirror of your cell phone with the system, then share applications, emails, working files, and so forth. We just need to provide to the passenger and the environment to work with. However, it will not be as comfortable as the one you have with your laptop or the information you have on board. But the solution exists, and we are able to provide to the passenger a service regarding this ban. So I'm not worried about our industry about that. I think it's a problem for some players in the industry, for some airlines who are suffering from this ban today. But our industry is ready to adapt, and maybe it's going to be an opportunity to accelerate on the connectivity side and also to provide more features on board. It will be an incentive to have a much more clever IFE maybe.
Okay, so you don't see any negative effect to this. It's an inconvenience for some, but in terms of the growth of the market, banning laptops and tablets is not going to stop it or slow it down. Right. Dave?
So I agree. Most passengers today connect with their smartphone. Not all, but the overwhelming majority do. What it hurts is our airlines that don't have connected aircraft but use wireless IFE, because those passengers are expecting to use the PED. And that could be an airline-provided PED, but this is an expense and logistics that they didn't plan on.
And they're all going to steal it, right?
Well, there's going to be difficulties associated with it and costs in maintaining a service like that. The biggest impact is it is such a hassle, and I have gone through this twice recently, and there's really no good way for an airline to do this. Even the lounges are not set up with enough space to go through this extra process that you have to do to give up your electronics and have them tag it and give you a new tag and pick it up on the other side and link it to travel.
Could you just go through that? So just walk, because I haven't done that yet, and I don't know how many here have. Has anybody here been in one of these airports where you have to surrender your laptop? There are 8 countries in the world. All right, Dave, you might be alone in the room. So tell us what the future looks like.
It doesn't look
recently,
good.
So when did they? First of all, when did they take the laptop? When you check your bag?
Typically at the gate.
At the gate.
Because most of them don't want to take your laptop away from you. They want to be able to use it until you have to board the flight. But that introduces other difficulties. They don't have process very well set today to do it in normal baggage check. Yeah. And so they had to set up special procedures that are done at the gate. So this introduces just logistical challenges for the airlines to be able to figure this out. And with more time, they'll probably get better at it. But the negative here to our business is not your use of something on board, because you can do that with your smartphone. It is business passengers don't want to travel. They don't want to go through those airports, and that's very negative for our business. They will avoid those airports. But if this ban is expanded, now you have business travelers avoiding travel, and that's very bad for our airline customers. That part of this we really do not like. So we're going to work to try to mitigate it, in very similar efforts to Thales, to try and help our passengers and our airlines through this period of time. But the real solution is to find a way to scan these electronics as they come through, so that you could detect explosives like this. And there are efforts underway to enhance that equipment, and then I'm sure bad characters will find ways to cloak it, and it'll go back and forth. But this is unfortunately the world we live in. We'll try and help that to mitigate the impact of the passengers, but it's very bad for traveling people.
So you check it at the gate, and then what? Then when do you get it on arrival?
So about 30 minutes after you get your bag,
it comes
the electronics
same
and you've got to stand in another line to bring your tag up, and because they don't want to give your laptop to somebody else, because that would be, or you'd be even more unhappy. And so you just go through a process. So you first have to get your checked bags. Now you got to get your checked electronics. By the way, it's not laptops and anything. It's anything bigger than a smartphone. So if you have a large lens for your camera, you're going to give it up. It's anything like the headphones, very expensive headphones that Bose headphones, you're going to give them up. It's any piece of electronics that's larger than a smartphone. Even some smartphones don't qualify because they're too large. So it's quite the negative impact on the business.
All right, and one last thing on this. I think you mentioned to me earlier that the technology to be able to scan for these bombs in laptop batteries, because that's what the problem is, the technology to do that in the normal scanning process as you go through the X-ray is en route? It's about to be here?
I just know people are working on it. That's, and we hope they can do this fast. But this is a challenge, and I think that, just as they invent a new solution, someone will invent a new cloaking mechanism, and this is going to be a difficult situation as we go forward. But I think you've seen tremendous progress in security systems. I don't know if Thales does that, but L3 and Smiths, a number of people who also do avionics, they do this. And it's a key part of travel, and they'll get better and better at it. But this is going to be a constant battle against people who want to use airplanes as weapons.
Okay, a quick one for Rodolphe, because we got just a couple of minutes left. Would you build a satellite on spec for an in-flight connectivity customer who's not necessarily willing to sign up now because you know that in this particular region demand is growing, or no? I don't think you've done that so far. You've had Panasonic help you with the design. You've launched satellites with Hughes over Latin America, but those customers were known before while you were building the satellite, correct?
Correct. We usually, or our usual practice is not to launch a new satellite unless we have what we call an anchor customer. And that's a way for us to make sure that we are going to recoup part of our investment. The difference between satellite and most of the infrastructure is that our infrastructure is ephemeral, meaning that it lives only for 15 years. That's the usual lifetime expectancy of a satellite, and meaning that we cannot spend or burn 2, 3, 4 years before we find a customer for a new satellite. That's why we launch only when we have an anchor customer.
Okay. And how many satellites are now being used, Eutelsat satellites now being used for IFC?
Well,
half a dozen?
Many of them, yeah, more than that, because actually you have what we call HTS satellites, which produce large quantity of capacity, which are particularly fitted to produce Wi-Fi on board the planes, but also some players like Panasonic or others, they also use traditional wide-beam satellites to extend the coverage of the HTS satellites, meaning that many of our satellites are used actually to deliver in-flight connectivity.
Okay, all right. And for Richard and Dave, a last one. Your business of providing in-flight connectivity, there's a general consensus that there are too many people in that business, too many companies in that business, and that sooner or later some will have to die by being bought out by others or just going through bankruptcy, whatever it is. First, do you agree that's true, that probably the market is not going to remain at, I don't know, 6, 8, 9 companies right now, that they will have to shrink? And secondly, is that going to cause some disruption in air routes, or can it be handled, can the consolidation, if you want, be handled in a smooth way so passengers don't care?
First of all, in the IFE business, this consolidation has already been made, since we have two players who have quit the market.
In IFE?
In IFE, yeah. First of all. So today we're leading the market with Panasonic, and we have Zodiac as being a third player. On the connectivity side, we know that it is quite challenging. There are some players who are in a critical financial situation. I have in mind at least 2 of them who are losing money year after year. So I don't know what the market will be in the future. I think the key piece is really to find the right economic balance and the right economic efficiency on this market over the years to come. The demand is there, so in order to meet this demand, we'll need to build the appropriate business models and the appropriate services with our airlines. But we do believe that it is quite good market, and that's the reason why we have invested so heavily on this on the technology first, and also on the product development.
All right, and one more for you. Is it odd that Thales, for the first big market, you're doing in-flight connectivity and chose North America, the most developed in-flight connectivity market in the world? That's where you put your first big satellite? Why not over Europe or over Asia?
There were a specific need for the Americas. This fits also with our customer portfolio. This will answer the needs of our existing customers. So it was important for us to serve the United States, North America, Central America, and South America as well as the North Atlantic route. And for the rest of the world, we also have a partnership with Inmarsat on GX. So today we are running on two legs, the one being the SES, and the agreement we have also with Hughes to provide, starting this year, the service in America, and then to extend the performance in 2021 with SES-17 satellite. But also we are providing our customer with a quite good offer with GX all around the world and for the rest of the routes for our customer.
Okay. Is GX enough in those routes around the world? Is GX enough? In Inmarsat capacity?
Today it's deploying, it's ongoing. There are some countries which are not yet open because of regulations issues, but this is a very good and competitive offer, so we're pursuing on that.
All right, Dave, quickly, is China okay with what you're doing?
Absolutely. They're probably went from a wall, China wall, to breaking down the wall or at least opening the doors. And so we have probably 150 aircraft, Chinese registered aircraft flying, and 1,000 or 1,100 foreign registered aircraft that fly over China every day. So things are moving forward in China. There still are some other difficult territories. But your earlier question, I would just say this. We would never say anything about there being too many competitors. That's not a good thing to say in the marketplace. What we do say is that irrational business models need to go away. And then people who operate irrational business models as a business and tell their investors they're going to get a return that there's good evidence now that that's not going to happen, that's not good for the business. When those people go out of business, it will hurt those carriers. No matter how fast we move to mitigate that or help those carriers get back into service, they'll have many, many days of out of service for those. And that's happened in this business before, in aero connectivity, and it caused great disruption, and then it's several years before we get back on track again. So what I hope is that you got legitimate players in the business, they have the resources to do the development necessary to find Eldorado, and develop it and make this a productive, good investment for our airlines. And you have to start with a rational understanding of the costs and the business model and the proposition to a passenger.
But you would agree that there are some irrational business models out there now?
There are.
And if these companies go belly up, that there will be disruption among those airlines. It can't be a smooth transition over to Panasonic or whoever it is.
Well, speaking just for Panasonic, we'll make this as smooth for them as we can, but there's no way to probably mitigate all the damage that would take place.
I suppose it's fair to say Panasonic is losing money on this right now, just because of the cycle, where the cycle you are, investing a lot, not yet the return. So there are several players who are losing money.
Yes, I think probably less for us. I think we're closer to break even. We have a great deal of mass. You need mass to be effective in the marketplace.
Okay.
1,600 aircraft installed and 2,500 in back orders for the system. So we can get to a scale you can be effective here, and you can then, applications, airlines will adapt the services. But I think that as long as you have irrational options out there, airlines will be forced to look at those options and then bear the consequences when these people go out of business. So that's a sad thing for the business.
Fair enough. All right. Well, on that less than glorious note, we will end. Will you join me in thanking my panelists? Unless, wait. Are there any questions that we didn't get to here? No, sorry. They're telling me no questions. We're out of time. Thank you very much, and join me in thanking my panelists.